Hi, it's Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to take a look into some of these jump starter boost pack lithium batteries that will get your vehicle or boat engine started if your starter battery goes dead. Let's see if they're worthwhile. A little while ago, I received emails asking, oh, Clark, would you please review these things? And I usually say no. I get a lot of requests, and if I can't think of a reason why you guys could want one, no. Or honestly, if I really want one myself, I might say yes. But I think this actually might have a place on a boat. Let's think about the boat just a little bit and its electrical system in the modern age with lithium batteries. As you know, I don't think you should be starting your engine with lithium batteries. There's just a long list of reasons why you shouldn't, and many of them end in like destroying your alternator or something like that. So we need lead to start our engine. There's always a little worry when you have a battery system. If it were all tied together, like your car, just be simple here. You don't leave your headlights on your vehicle for like 5 hours and expect to start the engine because it's going to run down the battery. Well, that's not a problem because in a car, you really don't do that very often. You need to see something for a little while, but if you're going to do it for more than like 15 minutes, you'll start the engine. But a boat anchored, you do need to run electrical things. You've got at least the refrigerator, but a load of stuff you're going to want to run. That is supposed to take power from what we call the house bank of batteries. If it's lead, it's a thick plate set of batteries that are designed to be able to cycle fairly adequately. Lead has never been good at that. That's why we're liking the lithium so much nowadays. But what they can't do with their big thick plate is put out a huge amount of amps. We have a starter battery. A starter battery has thin plates, lots and lots of plates, but thin. And it can put out a scary amount of amps, which is what you need to start an engine. The more amps that you can put out or have available boils down to the less voltage drop you're going to see. So the starter is getting a nice high voltage. And at high voltage, the starter actually runs cooler, spins the engine faster, the engine starts faster. It's all important to have a lot of oomph available when you say go. So we make these starter batteries. But the starter batteries, with their little thin plates, are terrible at cycling. If you discharge them down even 50%, maybe 10 or 20 times, you've really significantly changed how they're going to perform. You've degraded them. The big thick cells are better at that. They still degrade, but maybe you get like 400 before you decide you want to replace the batteries. Don't cycle your start batteries when it comes down to it. You get a huge burst of power, then you recharge them. So if you had both, historically, you couldn't hook them together. Because if you did, over the night when the refrigerator was running, it would take your starter battery down with them because they are exactly the same electrochemistry and they operate at the same voltages. So you had to keep them separate. And we either did that with switches or voltage-sensitive relays, all kinds of ways. You probably already know about all that. I have videos on that. We're now in this lithium world. And the lithium batteries, they do suck at starting motors for reasons that are separate, but they're tremendous at cycling. They're also a slightly different chemistry. And the electrochemistry of them give them a slightly different operational voltage range. It's so close, it doesn't matter for lights and your refrigerator and all these things, but it is different and it does affect the personality of the batteries and how they interact. Lead, when it's fully charged and brand new and rested, will end up at 12.8 volts, almost exactly. Lithium, same deal, fully charged and rested will be 13.2. Also, lithium doesn't drop in voltage very much when you pull power out of it in a reasonably slow way. So if you're pulling 10, 20 amps out of a great big house bank, it'll barely drop in voltage, and it'll only drop in voltage, down to 12.8 when it's I don't know, probably 15% full, so pretty low. What happens because of that is if you use the bank manager approach and you hook them together, the lithium will always hold the lead up, but what it's really doing is kind of making the lead not give up power, except under certain circumstances. If you had to like hit your bow thruster or something that used a lot of power and the voltage did drop down, the lead says, hey, I'll help, which is good because lead's good at that. But for running that refrigerator, it's just not going to until you discharge the lithium. So I argue that as long as you accept the fact that you don't plan on discharging your lithium completely and you're watching your system, you can just hook them right together and have the lead component be your starter batteries. Great, you've agreed. The batteries have accepted that, and then something screws up. Either something in your boat fails and uses more power than you expected and your batteries are dead, or like you might have multiple lead cells and one of them does that thing that lead does sometimes where they short internally and just discharge everything. And now you can't start your engine. So if you're worried about that, you could say, well, I want a whole nother lead battery for just starting the engine. I want that kept on a voltage sensitive relay and all that. And that's a wonderful way to do it. I've got a video on that. But I'm thinking if these actually work, these are small, we can carry them around and charge them up every now and again, make sure they're fully charged all the time, especially when we're about to do something like make a crossing or whatever. And say, I hope I never use it, but if I need it, maybe this will start the engine. I don't have a diesel engine to test them on here, but most of us have 3 and 4 cylinder diesel engines. Diesel engines are high compression. They're harder to start electrically than a gas engine. But I own a 400 horsepower V8 Ford truck, and I'm borrowed a crappy battery from somebody. You know, it wasn't much of a borrow. In fact, I don't think he's going to want it back. I think I'm stuck with it. But I'm going to put a bad battery in that truck, and then I'm going to use these jump packs to see if we can start the truck. My theory is if I can start that big V8, we can probably start the diesel engine. Anyway, that's my reason for wanting to do the reviews. These 2 companies have sent me their batteries, VTOMAN and GOOLOO. They don't roll off the tongue, but nothing does right now. Before we open the cases, take a quick look at the sales stuff. It says it will do a 5-liter diesel or a 7-liter gasoline engine, and it puts out 2,000 amps. This is just a little more. Don't trust any of that. Anything written by a marketer, anything where the man that made the decision to put it on the box, his big investment was the ink. If these things put out 2,000 amps, they would be bursting into flames right in front of you. The wires are too small. This guy probably said 2,000. This guy came out later and said 2,500. You know, it's just don't trust him at all. What we're going to do is if it starts the engine, it's okay. If it doesn't, it isn't. And that's all we can go by. It's a sad world when you put specifications on things. I'm an engineer, you know. You put specifications on things and you know that they're total lie, but you sell them anyway. I hate that. Okay, let's take a look at what's inside the box. This guy has a nice little vinyl bag, or nylon bag, Velcro. Keeps everything together. You could throw it under the seat, you know, forget about it until the day you need it. I like that. We've got the device itself. You turn on the device. These little lights come on. That 4 lights means fully charged. You have a light, an actual like a flashlight thing. And there we go. And that's handy because, you know, failures happen in the dark, right? So now you can find the hood release and you can find the battery and get things hooked up. It has a flashy strobe, SOS, I guess, pretty silly, and off. I like to be able to see, but I don't know if I like that it's a flashlight. As long as it would be bright enough, I think I would rather diffuse the light so that I can use it as a bit of a flare. And it has a compass on top. The day that I need to get my truck started, I think where north is probably really low on my list of needs. Okay. We have the jumper. And we have a little USB charging cable. These things charge off USB-C. It's a battery pack. And this one is like 45 bucks. This one's basically the same price at 50 bucks. A regular battery pack, just a pack of lithium batteries you could charge your phone off, is kind of that price. So for that reason alone, I think I would buy one of these over buying a battery pack. I've got a battery pack in my vehicle. I use it. It's actually the one that came with that cooling jacket. And honestly, I thought that was going to be the dumbest idea in the world. And I use it. And friends, when I'm out in the heat, are envious of me because I have it. Looks stupid, but it does keep you cool in the Florida sun. Anyway, what I'm getting at is you could plug your phone into this and charge your phone. You could use it for other things when it's, you know, obviously if you depleted it into your phone and then needed to start your truck, that would be a bad day. But most vehicles today, you know, recharge. They have a USB port to recharge things. So you could recharge it in your truck. Let's jump just out again about charging these things. I just want to do a little public safety announcement on it. For the most part, with very few exceptions, and whenever I have an exception, I tell you about it, I only show you things that have lithium iron phosphate batteries. These don't. These are going to have the other type of lithium ion battery. And, well, lithium iron phosphate batteries last longer. They're a better investment for the long term. These are lighter, and they can put out more power in a smaller package. So it's probably appropriate for this job. But lithium iron phosphate batteries are almost impossible to get into thermal runaway, so they don't burst into flames. But you've all seen the videos where cell phones or whatever burst into flames. It happens when charging, and this guy could do that. On the boat, I think a good rule might be only charge your batteries if you're on the boat. Don't leave the boat charging batteries, but maybe the batteries should be in something fireproof. At the very least, I've heard recommend, like, put it in your pasta pot. Not that the pasta pot's going to hold the heat in well, but if it bursts into flames, you could grab the pot handles and throw it over, or at least whip the battery out of it overboard. And you'd be protected a bit. I think, and particularly something that's going to take a long time to charge, like an electric bicycle, put the battery in your barbecue. Run a wire out to it, charge it outside of your boat, in the barbecue, over the rail. Generally, you don't have your barbecue under something that's going to catch fire, so if it did burst into flames, it's in the barbecue. It's already set up to handle heat, and it's kind of over the edge of the boat. So I think that would be the safest thing. All right, back to this. It's got a little, kind of an Anderson connector when you get down to it that this plugs into. This is going to be wired directly to the batteries. The incoming power is going to go through a BMS and power supply to handle all the USB. This guy is just going to be connected directly. It has a relay in here, a timed switch. So when you push this button, you get 30 seconds where it's connected directly to the batteries. I did a quick test a while ago with my meter. These are 16 volts. So since this is higher than 12 of a car battery, the current will flow into the car battery. Will it be 3,000 amps? I hope not. But will it be enough to start the vehicle? Let's hope so. Okay, that's the first one. Here's the second one. You know, it's a little bigger box. It's not because it has the bigger claims. It's because this guy has everything this guy has, plus it has an air compressor. So again, we have exactly the same connector. We do have a hose we can hook up here. We'll go out and try this on my truck. I do need a compressor in my truck. I bought one just like 2 weeks ago, so I feel a little silly now that I have two of them. But my truck often is operated as what I get groceries in. My truck is also operated as what carries my truck camper. And those are very, very different missions. So it has real truck tires on it. And I operate the tires at 35 PSI when I'm getting groceries so that I get a smooth ride, and you know, it's the way it should be. But when I have the camper on it, I can bring that up to, well, I bring it up to 75 PSI. And I need a way of doing that. I had been going to service stations, but the air compressors are all in terrible disrepair around here. You put your money in, they take your money, but they don't actually give you any air. And then when I finally found one that would give me air, I was terribly disappointed. It would only go up to 35 PSI. So here's this. We got some more buttons than that one has, and I think we have a display. So let's turn it on. It tells us the state of the battery. It says PSI. We get a little picture of a car. If we push the cycle button, we get a different car, a bicycle, and I guess that would be a basketball or a soccer ball. Probably soccer ball. That's internet. Anyway, playing with this, I've realized it's so you can set different pressures at different of these settings. You know, it could be like, you know, the wife's car, whatever. Bicycle, and my personal bicycle has 100 PSI tires. It's the only setting that goes up high enough for the truck. So I'll be setting the truck at bicycle. It has a light, and it's a good bright light. You know, it's not as directed as this guy, but you know, it'd be fine for finding my release of my hood and finding the battery and getting things hooked up. But I like that it's a diffuse thing, you know, even at an angle, you can see that. That's going to be something that is going to protect me from oncoming vehicles a bit. Has modes, flashy, oh, I guess it's SOS. Again, silly, but at least it's flashing. And then we have a red mode, and that's probably what I would set it for. And you know, my battery's dead. I'm by the side of the road in heavy or in what could be traffic. Actually, heavy traffic would be safer because all the cars would slow down. It's that country road where you just drive it along and then there's a vehicle there. You know, it's a surprise. So from a good distance, someone say, hey, what's that flashing light up there? And I would feel better. Turn that off. And then for turning on the compressor, probably I bump this. Got hot. That's a lot more compressor than I thought it would be. I got it up to about 45 PSI just by putting my thumb over it until my thumb hurt. Yeah, this might be a decent. Anyway, let's get this out to the truck and let's see what we can do with it. Okay, got it hooked up. This is a crappy battery. It's got a little juice in it. I've got it at 11.8 volts, but it doesn't have much reserve. Truck is using 2 amps apparently. Hope you can see that on this camera. I'm going to attempt to start the truck and, you know, just prove to myself the battery's crap. That officially did not start. So let's start with this one since it's closest. And for extra safety, I'll leave that off first. Hook it up to the positive and negative. And I hope you can see that. It's so there's 0 amps coming out of this device right now. I'll push the little button. I think the first time I'm going to do it, and I don't think this is a bad idea, I'm just going to let it do a 30-second cycle to charge the battery. 100 amps, down, 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 as the battery comes up. Oh, it went right off. Man, I would think that going right off like that would mean that it thought there was too much power. So 100 amps, even for a brief second, is too much. So let's forget about their 2000 claim. Okay, 70, again, it shut off. Should let this cool a bit, but I won't. Well, that's certainly not 30 seconds. I'll give it one more time and I'll see if, hey, maybe it put enough power in the battery to start it. Give it a shot. Well, you heard it. You saw it. Started right up. I'll have to look at the tape, but you guys will already know. Did you see that number go up? You know, did you see it pulling out any amps? Okay, I've got some, I'm going to turn the headlights back on, and I've got my little device that discharges battery. So I'm going to discharge this battery again, and we'll try the other guy. Okay, I've got the battery back dead so that it won't start the engine. Guess I can take this off. I use this more than you'd imagine. It's my thing I bought for testing batteries and cycling them, but can't tell you how many times you just need a little load to affect things. Okay, let's try the GOOLOO. Is it on? Nice bright display. I can see it when it's on. This one's staying on longer. I'm going to go try to start the car now. Watch that number. It's putting 60 amps into this battery. It worked. You saw it, I didn't. I hope you saw it. I hope it put some amps in, but whether it did or not, it was able to put enough power in the battery to get it to start it. So I like these. Before we go inside, let's see how the tire pressure part works. I'll set it for 60 PSI because I'm just going to let the tire. No, I'll set it for 75. Okay, it's not much pressure in the tires now, so it's going to take a while because these are very big tires. And hit the switch. I've changed my mind. I'm not going to wait for this to get to 75 PSI. I'm going to do another test inside to verify it can, because we'd like to know, but you can tell by the sound of it, it's not laboring. I think it'll be fine. The gauge is better than my other one. So just that alone, I like this one better. So if I'm going to put the camper on, I'm not in a major hurry. I think using this to pump the tires up will be fine. It was hot out there. I didn't want to wait for the whole tire to pump because I realized that if I take this tip, this one in particular, with a really, really small opening, I'm sure it's for blowing up beach toys, but oh my God, just blow into them. This would take a while. But anyway, because it has a very small opening and it's pounds per square inch, I can probably plug that more easily. So I'm going to bring it up to 75 PSI and I'm going to run it. And if it shuts itself off at 75 PSI, then we're going to say it can do 75 PSI. It won't be a test to see if it overheats, you know, it starts getting too hot when it gets up there. But, you know, you can always solve that by letting it cool down, doing it again. So I think this is a valid test. So here we go. Shut right off. So what happened there is because I could cover up the small hole without too much force and it didn't get hot because it wasn't close, it brought the hose up to 75 PSI. Sensor says shut off, shut off. I particularly like the shut off. The idea being it's battery powered. You don't want to sit there. Set it for 35 pounds, leave. come back later, maybe charge it up again, set it on the next tire. So I like it. Okay, I've learned stuff, so this was a good video. I'm glad I did it. Only you will know until I edit whether when I did the second one, you actually saw the amps go way up when I tried to start the engine. If you did, then that means it puts out a lot of amps. That's how many it can put out. I will bet my life it didn't put out 2,500. So, which to buy? Virtually the same price. What, $5 difference? $5 for a compressor is great if you need a compressor. Paying $5 extra for something that's heavier and bulkier is a terrible detriment if you don't need a compressor. You probably don't need a compressor on a boat, so I'd get one of the little ones. And in a vehicle, you never know when you might need a compressor. I'd get one of the big ones. And this one's definitely going in my truck. I'll probably give away my other compressor, which is a much better, bigger compressor. Maybe I'll keep it around the house, you know, for when I really need to move a lot of air. And either this will go to the boat if I have room in luggage, or, well, I can't take it in luggage because it's lithium. If I pick up a box that I'm going to slow ship out to the DR, I could see myself sending that out there. So I'm pleasantly surprised by this technology. I really thought it was going to be a joke, but I don't think so. Bye from Clark on Temptress.